Ms. Monaco, last week the National School Board Association wrote to President Biden asking the administration to bring the full force and weight of the feds down onto parents who are protesting various school policies at school board meetings, including the indoctrination of children with an anti-American doctrine known as critical race theory, or protesting the requirement that children as young as 2 be required to wear masks. Now, I think we can all agree that violence is not an acceptable form of political protest, and violence can never be used to achieve policy or political goals. But that's not what the School Board Association letter focuses on. In fact, in one example of what the association thinks warrants federal criminal charges, they cite, and this is a direct quote, an individual who prompted a school board to call a recess because of opposition to critical race theory. A recess. The association is asking the administration to use the Patriot Act, a law that this Congress passed and has repeatedly reauthorized, primarily to stop the threat of Islamic jihadists, to bring criminal charges for domestic terrorism against parents who attend school boards to oppose things like critical race theory or mask mandates, resulting in a recess being called. Ms. Monaco, is it domestic extremism for a parent to advocate for their child's best interests?
Well, Senator, as you rightly point out, that violence is not the answer. There can be very spirited public debate, and there should be very spirited public debate on a whole host of issues. But when that tips over into violence or threats, there is a role for law enforcement.
But Ms. Monaco, I'm sorry, my time is limited here, and I asked a simple yes or no question, and I have several of them that I want to ask. So I'd like a yes or no answer. Is it domestic extremism for a parent to advocate for their child's best interests?
I think what you have described, no, I would not describe as domestic extremism.
Domestic extremism for a parent to want to have a say in what their child is taught at school?
I think it's important, although obviously not my field in the Justice Department, to opine on education policy. It's important for parents' voices to be heard. But, Senator, I want to talk about what the Attorney General did do in response to that. The issue of threats.
Ms. Monaco, I want to go through my question. I grant you that no one should ever threaten violence or use violence to try to achieve political or policy goals. They shouldn't, for instance, follow Democratic senators into the bathroom violating state laws. No one should ever use threats of violence or violence to achieve political goals. I'm asking very simple questions here and trying to get to the bottom of what was on the Attorney General's mind or the Department's mind. Is it domestic extremism for parents to oppose their children being taught to treat people differently because of race?
The Justice Department's job, Senator, is to apply facts to law, not to opine on letters that are put forward or I think it's very important for the Justice Department to.
Ms. Monaco, it's a fact that the School Board Association just sent this letter to President Biden, and then conveniently the Attorney General released his letter yesterday describing his series of measures to confront this grave and growing threat of parents protesting their kids being indoctrinated and the school board having to call a recess. Is there any connection between those two things?
I want to be very clear, in the memorandum that's publicly available the Attorney General issued talks about the importance of bringing federal, state, local law enforcement together to make sure that there is awareness of how to report threats that may occur and to ensure that there's an open line of communication to address threats, to address violence, and to address law enforcement issues in that context, which is the job of the Justice Department, nothing more.
The United States just saw the largest single-year increase in murders on record. Has the Attorney General issued a memorandum describing a special series of measures that the Department of Justice should take to try to address this record increase in murders?
Yes, indeed, Senator. In fact, I issued a directive to the field
You did.
earlier this year.
As the Attorney General.
It was on behalf of the Attorney General and the rest of the leadership of the Justice Department to address the alarming rise in violent crime and to lay out a strategy for violent crime reduction, which includes going after and using federal resources to target the most violent offenders, including those operating with guns, including those responsible for murders and violence in our communities. So absolutely, we take the alarming rise in violent crime crime exceptionally seriously. And indeed, I've heard from the many hours I have spent with law enforcement leaders across this country how urgently they feel it is to address this rise in violent crime. And we are working every day to address that challenge.
I just want to finish with one final question. Did anyone at the FBI express disagreement or any reticence at all about investigating disagreements between parents and school boards over curriculums and school policies?
I don't understand that to have been it absolutely was not the subject of the Attorney General's memorandum, but the answer to your question is no.
Nobody at the FBI expressed any reticence.
I'm sorry, Senator, if you're asking me what was the response to the Attorney General's memorandum, I've heard no reticence, no concern. The job of U.S. attorneys and FBI special agents in charge to be conveners in their community, to address violent issues in their community, is the core job of the Justice Department.
All right, then.